Most people are not suffering because they are alone. They are suffering because they are too attached. Attached to attention, attached to approval, attached to the hope that someone else will bring them peace. But the more you depend on others for happiness, the more power you give away. Buddhist wisdom teaches that true peace begins when attachment begins to fade. When you stop needing constant reassurance, the mind becomes quiet. When you stop chasing validation, the heart becomes lighter. When you stop depending on others, you begin to discover a deeper kind of happiness. In this video, you will learn how emotional detachment can protect your peace, strengthen your mind, and help you experience calmness that does not depend on anyone else. 1. Attachment creates suffering. One of the most profound insights in Buddhist wisdom is the understanding that attachment is one of the main causes of emotional suffering. This does not mean that caring about people is wrong, and it does not mean that love itself creates pain. The problem begins when care turns into emotional dependence, when love turns into fear of loss, and when connection turns into a need that feels impossible to live without. Attachment creates the illusion that our happiness is tied to something outside of us, and when that external source becomes unstable, our peace begins to shake. When we become emotionally attached to people, we often create expectations in our minds without even realizing it. We expect others to understand us without explanation, to support us without hesitation, and to remain the same even as life continues to change. We expect consistency in a world that is constantly moving and evolving. These expectations may feel natural, but they slowly create pressure inside the heart. When someone behaves differently than we imagined, the mind immediately reacts with disappointment. When someone becomes distant, we feel rejected. When someone changes priorities, we feel unimportant. The suffering does not come from the change itself, but from our resistance to accepting that change is a natural part of life. Human beings are constantly evolving. Feelings shift, responsibilities change, and circumstances transform in ways we cannot always predict. A person who once had time and energy may later become busy or distracted. Someone who once understood us deeply may go through struggles that make them emotionally unavailable. None of these changes are unusual, yet attachment makes these normal changes feel painful because we are holding on to an image of how things should remain. The mind tries to freeze people in a fixed form, but life does not remain fixed. Life flows, and everything within it flows as well. The tighter we hold on, the more fear begins to grow inside us. We begin to worry about losing the connection, losing the attention, or losing the sense of importance we once felt. Fear slowly replaces peace. Instead of enjoying the relationship naturally, the mind becomes occupied with protecting it. Instead of feeling calm, the heart becomes sensitive to every small change in behavior. A delayed reply begins to feel meaningful. A small difference in tone begins to feel personal. The mind starts searching for signs of distance, and this constant searching creates emotional exhaustion. Attachment creates pressure because we are trying to hold on to something that is not meant to remain exactly the same forever. Everything in life is temporary, including situations, emotions, and relationships. Buddhism teaches that understanding impermanence is not meant to make us sad, but to make us wiser. When we understand that change is natural, we stop demanding permanence from temporary experiences. We begin to appreciate moments without trying to control them. We begin to value people without trying to possess them. Detachment does not mean removing love from your life. It means removing fear from your love. It means caring for people without feeling that your happiness will collapse without them. It means appreciating connection without losing connection with yourself. When attachment softens, the heart becomes lighter. There is less pressure, less anxiety, and less overthinking. You still care, but you no longer feel controlled by the need for everything to stay the same. When you understand that everything in life is changing, you begin to hold relationships with more awareness and more calmness. You become grateful for what exists instead of fearful of what might disappear. Detachment allows love to exist without turning into emotional suffering. It allows connection to feel peaceful instead of stressful. And when the fear of losing begins to fade, a deeper sense of emotional freedom begins to grow within you. 2. Detachment does not mean you stop caring. Many people misunderstand the idea of emotional detachment because they associate it with becoming distant, cold, or indifferent. They believe that if they detach, they will lose their ability to love deeply or maintain meaningful relationships. This misunderstanding creates resistance toward detachment because most people do not want to become heartless. They simply want to suffer less. Buddhism teaches that true detachment is not about removing love from your life, but about removing the emotional instability that often comes with attachment. Detachment is not the absence of care, it is the presence of inner balance. When a person is emotionally attached in an unhealthy way, their peace becomes dependent on how others behave. If someone shows appreciation, they feel happy. If someone becomes distant, they feel anxious. If someone disagrees with them, they feel hurt. Their emotional state keeps changing because it is controlled by external reactions. In this state, love is mixed with fear. Fear of losing attention, fear of losing importance, and fear of being replaced slowly weakens emotional stability. Detachment brings freedom from this fear by creating a healthier way of caring. To detach does not mean you stop valuing people. It means you stop depending on them as the only source of emotional security. You can still support others, listen to them, and share meaningful experiences, but your sense of peace remains stable even when situations are not perfect. You do not feel broken when someone disagrees with you, and you do not feel empty when someone is unavailable. Detachment allows love to exist without emotional pressure. It allows relationships to feel natural instead of heavy. A detached person still feels compassion. They still show kindness. They still appreciate connection. The difference is that their emotional stability is not controlled by other people's moods or decisions. They do not constantly worry about whether someone will stay or leave. They do not measure their worth based on how much attention they receive. Instead of clinging to people for emotional reassurance, they develop reassurance within themselves. This inner reassurance creates calmness that cannot easily be shaken. When care becomes balanced, relationships often improve rather than weaken. People feel more comfortable around someone who does not constantly seek validation. Conversations become more natural because there is less pressure to prove importance. There is more space for honesty because there is less fear of losing approval. Detachment allows connection to grow in a peaceful way without forcing closeness or demanding constant emotional confirmation. It creates respect because it shows emotional maturity. Buddhist wisdom encourages a middle path, a balanced way of living where emotions are neither suppressed nor allowed to control the mind completely. Detachment follows this middle path. It does not ask you to stop caring, and it does not ask you to stop loving. It simply teaches you not to lose yourself while caring for others. When you lose yourself in relationships, you begin to ignore your own needs, your own peace, and your own emotional health. Detachment reminds you that your inner stability matters just as much as your external connections. Caring with detachment also means accepting that people are imperfect. Just as you are learning and growing, others are also learning and growing. Sometimes they will misunderstand you. Sometimes they will disappoint you. Sometimes they will behave in ways you did not expect. When you accept human imperfection, you reduce unnecessary frustration. You no longer expect people to behave perfectly all the time. This acceptance protects your peace and allows relationships to feel lighter. Detachment teaches that love becomes healthier when it is free from fear. Fear creates tension, while acceptance creates calmness. When you stop trying to control how others feel about you, your mind becomes quieter. When you stop expecting constant reassurance, your heart becomes stronger. When you stop depending on approval, your confidence becomes more natural. This confidence does not come from pride, but from emotional stability. A person who practices detachment understands that relationships are meaningful, but they are not the foundation of their self-worth. Their sense of value does not rise or fall based on how much attention they receive. They feel secure within themselves, and this security allows them to give care freely without expecting something in return. Their kindness becomes genuine because it is not driven by emotional neediness. Their presence becomes peaceful because they are not silently demanding validation. Detachment creates emotional space, and emotional space creates clarity. When your mind is not constantly worried about losing people, you begin to see situations more clearly. You make wiser decisions. You react less impulsively. You communicate more calmly. This clarity improves the quality of relationships because you are no longer reacting from fear. You are responding from understanding. True detachment is not the removal of love. It is the purification of love. It removes possessiveness, fear, and emotional pressure, allowing care to exist in a more peaceful form. You still value people, but you do not allow their presence or absence to control your inner state. You still maintain connection, but you do not lose connection with yourself. When you learn to care without clinging, your heart becomes lighter and your mind becomes calmer. Relationships feel more natural because they are no longer carrying the burden of emotional dependence. You begin to experience connection with more gratitude and less fear. This is the quiet strength that detachment brings. It allows love to remain in your life, while suffering slowly fades away. 3. Your happiness should not depend on others. One of the deepest causes of emotional instability is the belief that happiness must come from other people. Many individuals grow up thinking that joy will arrive when someone finally understands them completely, when someone chooses them, or when someone stays permanently in their life. This belief slowly creates emotional dependence because the mind begins to connect happiness with external approval. When attention is present, the heart feels satisfied. When attention disappears, the heart feels empty. This cycle creates a fragile emotional state where peace constantly rises and falls based on other people's behavior. Buddhist wisdom gently reminds us that anything dependent on external conditions will always remain unstable. People change, priorities shift, and circumstances evolve in ways that are often beyond our control. When happiness depends entirely on someone else's presence, even small changes can feel deeply disturbing. A delayed response may create anxiety. A difference in tone may create doubt. A change in routine may create fear of distance. Over time, the mind becomes overly sensitive, constantly searching for reassurance. This continuous need for reassurance slowly drains emotional energy and prevents the mind from experiencing true calmness. When we depend on others for happiness, we unknowingly give away our emotional freedom. Our mood becomes influenced by how much attention we receive, how much appreciation we are given, and how often we feel included. We begin to measure our worth through external responses instead of internal understanding. This creates a silent pressure where we feel the need to maintain approval in order to maintain peace. The mind begins to fear disconnection because disconnection feels like losing happiness itself. This fear often leads to overthinking, over-explaining, and over-adjusting just to keep others close. Buddhism teaches that happiness is more stable when it is developed within the mind rather than searched for in the outside world. Inner happiness is not dependent on constant validation. It grows through self-understanding, self-acceptance, and emotional awareness. When a person begins to observe their thoughts and emotions carefully, they start realizing that peace can exist even in solitude. Solitude then transforms from something uncomfortable into something meaningful. Instead of feeling incomplete when alone, the person begins to feel grounded. Learning to enjoy your own company is an important step toward emotional independence. When you feel comfortable being alone, relationships become a choice rather than a necessity. You no longer connect with people because you fear loneliness. You connect because you genuinely appreciate the interaction. This shift creates healthier emotional patterns because the relationship is no longer carrying the responsibility of maintaining your entire happiness. It becomes part of your life, but not the foundation of your emotional stability. Depending too heavily on others often creates expectations that are difficult to fulfill. We expect others to always understand our feelings, even when we have not clearly expressed them. We expect consistent emotional support, even when the other person may be facing their own struggles. When these expectations are not met, disappointment begins to grow. Repeated disappointment can create frustration, and frustration can slowly weaken the quality of the relationship. The problem is not always the people around us, but the pressure placed on them to fulfill emotional needs that only we can truly stabilize within ourselves. Emotional independence does not mean isolating yourself or avoiding meaningful relationships. It means developing a stable inner state that does not collapse when external situations change. When happiness grows from within, relationships become more peaceful because they are no longer burdened with unrealistic emotional responsibility. Conversations become more natural because there is less fear of losing approval. Interactions feel lighter because there is no constant need for reassurance. This inner stability allows a person to communicate with clarity instead of anxiety. When a person learns to generate peace from within, they stop chasing constant validation. They no longer feel the need to prove their worth through attention or approval. They begin to recognize that their value exists independently of how others respond to them. This understanding strengthens emotional resilience. Situations that once created strong emotional reactions begin to feel manageable. Moments of silence no longer feel uncomfortable. Periods of distance no longer feel threatening. The mind becomes more relaxed because it is no longer searching for constant confirmation of importance. Buddhist teachings encourage awareness of the present moment because the present moment often contains more peace than the worried mind realizes. Much emotional suffering comes from imagining future loss or remembering past disappointment. When the mind learns to remain present, it becomes easier to appreciate simple experiences such as quiet time, personal growth, and self-reflection. These experiences may seem small, but they create a strong foundation for lasting contentment. Happiness becomes less dramatic but more consistent. When happiness is built internally, relationships often improve naturally. People feel more comfortable around someone who does not constantly seek reassurance. The connection becomes more genuine because it is not driven by emotional dependence. Respect grows because emotional strength is visible. Balance develops because neither person feels responsible for carrying the entire emotional weight of the relationship. Instead of clinging to people out of fear, the person begins to appreciate people with gratitude. True happiness becomes deeper when it is not dependent on temporary circumstances. It becomes calmer because it is not constantly being shaken by external changes. It becomes more reliable because it is not tied to unpredictable behavior. This type of happiness is quiet, but it is strong. It does not disappear when situations change. It does not weaken when attention shifts. It remains stable because it is supported by self-understanding. When you stop depending on others to feel complete, you begin to experience a sense of emotional freedom that feels both peaceful and empowering. You still value relationships, but you no longer fear losing yourself within them. You still appreciate connection, but you are no longer controlled by the need for constant presence. Your happiness becomes something that belongs to you, not something that must be given to you. Buddhist wisdom reminds us that everything external is uncertain, but the mind can learn stability through awareness and understanding. When you develop happiness from within, you create a foundation that is not easily shaken. From this foundation, relationships become more meaningful because they are no longer driven by emotional need, but by genuine appreciation. This shift allows happiness to grow in a deeper and more lasting way, creating peace that is not dependent on anyone else's actions. 4. Let go of the need to control everything. One of the hidden causes of emotional suffering is the strong desire to control everything that happens in life. The mind often believes that peace will come when situations go exactly as planned, when people behave exactly as expected, and when outcomes match our personal preferences. We try to control how others think about us, how they treat us, how quickly they respond, and how consistently they remain in our lives. This desire for control feels natural because the mind associates control with safety. It believes that if everything can be predicted, then nothing can hurt us. However, the reality of life is very different. Life is constantly changing, and people are constantly evolving. Trying to control everything creates inner tension because the world does not always follow our expectations. When we attempt to control people, we begin to experience frustration because human beings are not objects that can be managed according to our desires. Every individual has their own thoughts, emotions, priorities, and challenges. Sometimes they may act in ways that align with our expectations, but other times they may behave differently. When we become attached to a specific outcome, any deviation from that outcome begins to feel uncomfortable. The mind starts to resist reality, wishing that things were different. This resistance creates stress because we are mentally fighting against something that is already happening. Instead of accepting the moment, we create conflict within ourselves. Control often appears in subtle ways. We may not always notice it clearly, but it influences how we react to situations. We may try to control conversations so that we feel respected. We may try to control relationships so that we feel secure. We may try to control timing so that we feel certain about the future. The mind begins to believe that peace is only possible when everything happens according to its plan. But because life does not guarantee certainty, the mind remains restless. It keeps searching for reassurance, yet reassurance never feels complete because uncertainty always exists. Buddhist wisdom teaches that suffering increases when we demand permanence from an impermanent world. Everything in life is constantly moving, including circumstances, emotions, and connections. When we insist that everything must remain fixed, we create disappointment because reality cannot remain frozen. The desire to control often comes from fear. Fear of losing stability, fear of being hurt, and fear of uncertainty. The mind tries to protect itself by attempting to shape the external world, but this effort creates continuous pressure because the external world cannot be fully controlled. Letting go of control does not mean becoming passive or careless. It means understanding the difference between what can be influenced and what cannot be controlled. We can influence our actions, our words, and our choices. We can improve our understanding, strengthen our patience, and develop emotional awareness. But we cannot fully control how others respond, how situations unfold, or how quickly change occurs. When we accept this truth, the mind begins to relax. The constant effort to force outcomes slowly fades, and a sense of openness begins to appear. Acceptance is a powerful form of emotional strength. It does not mean that everything is perfect, but it means that we are no longer fighting against reality. When the mind stops resisting what cannot be changed, it creates space for calmness. Instead of spending energy worrying about outcomes, we begin to focus on the present moment. We give attention to our responses rather than trying to manage every external event. This shift creates a feeling of stability because our peace is no longer tied to unpredictable circumstances. When a person tries to control everything, they often experience overthinking. The mind continuously analyzes possibilities, searching for certainty in an uncertain environment. It tries to predict every scenario, hoping to avoid discomfort. But this constant mental activity creates fatigue. The more we try to control, the more we think. The more we think, the less peaceful the mind becomes. Letting go of excessive control reduces this mental burden. It allows the mind to rest from unnecessary worry. Buddhism encourages observing life with awareness rather than reacting with fear. When we observe without trying to control every detail, we begin to see situations more clearly. We recognize that many things unfold naturally without our constant interference. Relationships grow when there is space for authenticity. Conversations become meaningful when there is freedom to express honestly. Personal growth becomes possible when we accept uncertainty as part of the journey. Trying to control everything can also create emotional pressure in relationships. When one person feels that they must behave in a specific way to maintain peace, the connection becomes tense. Expectations become heavy, and communication becomes less natural. Letting go of control allows relationships to breathe. It allows people to express themselves more freely without feeling constantly evaluated. This freedom often improves trust because there is less fear of judgment. When we release the need to control every outcome, we begin to develop trust in the process of life. Trust does not mean expecting everything to go perfectly. It means understanding that we have the ability to handle whatever happens. This confidence reduces anxiety because the mind is no longer trying to guarantee a perfect future. Instead of demanding certainty, we develop resilience. We begin to understand that peace does not come from controlling events, but from strengthening our ability to respond calmly. Letting go of control also increases emotional flexibility. When situations change unexpectedly, the mind adapts more easily. Instead of feeling overwhelmed by every change, we begin to view change as part of life's natural movement. This perspective reduces resistance and increases acceptance. Acceptance creates emotional space, and emotional space creates clarity. From clarity, wiser decisions become possible. Control often creates the illusion of security, but true security comes from inner stability. When the mind becomes stable, external uncertainty feels less threatening. When self-understanding becomes stronger, external validation becomes less necessary. When emotional awareness increases, reactions become more thoughtful rather than impulsive. These changes create a deeper sense of calm that does not depend on perfect circumstances. Buddhist teachings often emphasize that peace comes from understanding the nature of reality. Reality includes uncertainty, change, and unpredictability. When we stop demanding that life behave according to our preferences, we reduce internal conflict. We stop struggling against the natural flow of events. Instead of forcing outcomes, we begin to participate in life with patience and openness. Letting go of control does not remove responsibility. It removes unnecessary mental tension. We continue to make thoughtful choices, but we no longer expect guaranteed results. We continue to care about outcomes, but we do not allow outcomes to control our emotional state. This balanced approach creates a sense of freedom because the mind is no longer trapped in constant anticipation. When control softens, peace begins to grow. When resistance decreases, acceptance increases. When acceptance increases, emotional suffering decreases. The mind becomes calmer because it is no longer trying to manage every detail of life. Instead of forcing life to move according to rigid expectations, we begin to move with life's natural rhythm. This shift creates a deeper sense of trust, not necessarily in specific outcomes, but in our own ability to remain stable regardless of outcomes. We begin to understand that peace is not created by controlling everything. Peace is created by releasing the need to control everything. 5. Emotional detachment creates inner peace. When emotional detachment begins to develop within a person, one of the first changes they notice is a quiet sense of relief inside the mind. Situations that once created strong emotional reactions no longer feel as overwhelming as before. Thoughts become slower, reactions become more thoughtful, and the constant need for reassurance gradually disappears. Emotional detachment does not remove feelings, but it removes the intensity of emotional instability. The mind no longer feels pulled in every direction by external events. Instead, it begins to experience a steady sense of calm that feels deeply grounding. Inner peace does not appear suddenly. It develops slowly as the mind learns to observe situations without becoming trapped in them. When a person practices detachment, they begin to notice how often their mood used to depend on external validation. A simple message, a small change in behavior, or a slight misunderstanding could once disturb the entire day. The mind would analyze every detail, searching for meaning behind small actions. Emotional detachment gradually reduces this habit of overanalysis. The person begins to understand that not every situation requires a strong emotional reaction. When attachment is strong, the mind constantly seeks confirmation of importance. It wants to feel valued, appreciated, and remembered. While appreciation is natural, depending entirely on external confirmation creates emotional vulnerability. If appreciation is not expressed in the expected way, the mind may begin to feel neglected or unimportant. Emotional detachment changes this pattern by creating self-recognition. Instead of waiting for others to confirm value, the person begins to recognize their own worth internally. This shift creates emotional stability because self-worth is no longer dependent on unpredictable responses. As detachment grows, emotional reactions become more balanced. Instead of reacting immediately to every discomfort, the person begins to pause and observe their thoughts. This pause creates space between the situation and the reaction. In this space, clarity begins to appear. The person realizes that not every situation deserves deep emotional involvement. Some situations pass naturally when they are not given excessive mental attention. By allowing experiences to come and go without attaching strong emotional meaning to each one, the mind becomes lighter. Inner peace is often disturbed by constant mental noise. The mind continuously replays past conversations, imagines future scenarios, and creates unnecessary worry. Emotional detachment helps reduce this mental noise because the person stops assigning excessive importance to every small interaction. They begin to recognize that many thoughts are temporary and do not require constant attention. When the mind stops holding on to every small detail, it gains the ability to rest. This rest creates emotional recovery, allowing the mind to feel refreshed and stable. Detachment also protects emotional energy. Without detachment, a person may feel affected by every opinion, every judgment, and every change in behavior around them. Their emotional state becomes highly sensitive to external influence. With detachment, emotional boundaries become clearer. The person becomes more selective about what deserves their attention. They do not allow every situation to disturb their inner balance. This selective awareness protects emotional strength and prevents unnecessary exhaustion. People who practice emotional detachment often discover that they become more patient. They do not rush to react or defend themselves in every situation. They understand that not every misunderstanding requires immediate correction. Not every opinion requires agreement. Not every moment requires explanation. This patience creates a sense of dignity because the person is no longer controlled by the urgency to respond. Their calmness becomes their strength. Their silence becomes their stability. Inner peace grows when the mind stops comparing constantly. Attachment often creates comparison because the person begins to measure their value through external approval. They observe how much attention others receive, how others are treated, and how others are appreciated. These comparisons create insecurity because they shift attention away from personal growth. Emotional detachment reduces comparison by bringing focus back to the inner journey. The person begins to care more about self-understanding than external recognition. This focus reduces unnecessary mental conflict. Detachment also improves clarity in decision-making. When emotions are highly influenced by external approval, decisions often become confusing. A person may choose actions based on fear of losing acceptance rather than based on genuine understanding. Emotional detachment reduces this fear, allowing decisions to come from a place of calm awareness. Choices become more thoughtful because they are not rushed by emotional pressure. This clarity creates confidence because the person trusts their own judgment. One of the most beautiful aspects of emotional detachment is that it allows a person to enjoy relationships without losing personal stability. They can appreciate connection without feeling dependent on constant interaction. They can care about people without feeling controlled by their behavior. Relationships become more balanced because emotional responsibility is shared rather than carried entirely by one person. This balance reduces tension and allows communication to feel more natural. When inner peace begins to grow, external situations lose some of their power to disturb the mind. Difficult conversations may still happen, but they no longer feel overwhelming. Changes may still occur, but they no longer feel threatening. The person begins to trust that their emotional stability does not disappear when circumstances change. This trust creates resilience, the ability to remain calm even when life becomes uncertain. Buddhist teachings often emphasize awareness as the path to freedom. Emotional detachment increases awareness because the mind becomes less clouded by fear and expectation. The person begins to observe life more clearly, noticing how emotions arise and pass naturally. They understand that feelings are temporary experiences, not permanent conditions. This understanding reduces the intensity of emotional reactions and creates a sense of balance. Inner peace is not the absence of challenges, it is the presence of stability during challenges. Emotional detachment supports this stability by reducing the habit of taking everything personally. The person begins to understand that other people's actions often reflect their own internal state rather than being direct judgments. This understanding reduces unnecessary hurt and allows compassion to grow. When emotional detachment becomes part of daily life, a deeper sense of freedom appears. Freedom from constant overthinking, freedom from needing approval, freedom from fearing change. The person no longer feels trapped by the need to control every situation. They begin to trust that their peace comes from within, not from perfect external conditions. This inner peace is quiet but powerful. It does not demand attention, yet it influences every aspect of life. It improves emotional balance, strengthens patience, and increases clarity. It allows the person to move through life with less fear and more understanding. Instead of reacting to every difficulty, they respond with awareness. Instead of feeling overwhelmed by uncertainty, they remain grounded. Emotional detachment does not isolate a person from the world. It connects them to the world in a healthier way. They participate in relationships without losing their center. They care about situations without becoming consumed by them. They remain open to experience while maintaining emotional stability. This balance creates a deeper kind of happiness, one that is not easily disturbed. As this peace grows stronger, the person begins to feel comfortable within themselves. Silence becomes peaceful rather than uncomfortable. Solitude becomes refreshing rather than lonely. The mind becomes a supportive companion instead of a source of worry. This transformation allows life to feel more meaningful because happiness is no longer dependent on constant external confirmation. In this state, the person understands that peace is not something to chase, it is something to allow. It emerges naturally when attachment softens, when control relaxes, and when the mind stops demanding certainty from an uncertain world. Emotional detachment creates the space where this peace can grow. And within this peace, a deeper kind of happiness begins to exist, stable, calm, and quietly strong. Emotional detachment is not about removing people from your life. It is about removing the fear that you cannot live peacefully without them. When attachment becomes lighter, the mind becomes calmer. When expectations become fewer, the heart becomes freer. When you stop depending on others to feel complete, you begin to experience a quiet confidence that cannot easily be shaken. True happiness does not come from controlling people, and it does not come from forcing life to follow your plans. It comes from understanding that peace already exists within you, waiting to be discovered beneath the noise of expectations and emotional dependence. When you learn to enjoy your own company, you stop fearing loneliness. When you trust your own inner stability, you stop fearing change. When you understand your own value, you stop chasing constant validation. Detachment allows you to care without losing yourself. It allows you to love without feeling controlled. It allows you to live with a calm mind, even in an uncertain world. Protect your peace, strengthen your awareness, choose emotional balance. Because a peaceful mind does not come from having everything, it comes from needing less. And when you need less, you suffer less. And you finally discover a deeper kind of happiness.